I am here with Bret Kinsella, and I'm very excited to talk with you because you're talking about the future of AI today, and you're with FueliX. So tell me a little bit about your vision and what's happening right now in this space.
All right, well, FueliX is a generative AI platform that allows you to integrate with multiple LLMs. You don't have vendor lock-in to tools like RAG and guardrails. So one of the things people need when they build these all of these generative AI systems is they need all these other services, whether it be different LLMs or different types of tools. We make that really easy. And we also have applications on the top because this comes out of TELUS, and TELUS Digital, TELUS largest telecom provider in Canada. And so we launched a solution that's a co-pilot with 35,000 people last year. That was our starting group of people. And really what we're focused on is making it easier for CIOs, CTOs to adopt generative AI as a capability in the organization so they can control it, they can have trust in it, they can deliver agility to the edge of their organization, they can have flexibility in terms of how they deploy it. And then we're helping the business side drive productivity in all sorts of areas of the business that either deal with a lot of words or create a lot of words, have a lot of words, but it's usually something about documents, people talking to each other normally, or talking to their data and actually being able to execute their business process, their work task more efficiently.
And this has been, again, the future, right? So we weren't having these conversations 10, 20 years ago. Some people were, but not on the scale that we're seeing right now.
We weren't really even having these conversations 3 years ago.
3 years ago, right.
Because we were basically at the frontier capabilities of what we would have called NLU, natural language understanding, natural language processing. And that's where we first met, talking about a lot of those technologies. Yes. And those were tremendously better than they had been 10 years before, or I was talking about someone earlier who had been in this since the 90s where there was expert systems. But what we're talking about from the generative space is very interesting because it's actually the first time that systems are creating content for us and they're interpreting language in a really efficient way. We used to be able to train models almost to create a set of rules so it would understand what you said and then what you want, intent identification. Then what we realized is when you basically train large language models on the internet, they're much better than anything we had in the past. In fact, many orders of magnitude better. They can do more breadth, they can do more depth, and you can customize them more effectively.
And so you're bringing up some really important points right now, and one of the things that I hear a lot of people talk about is getting AI to learn from itself, and then also what does AI do with prompting, and there's different names for this, and sometimes people are using different names, I've heard autonomous, but there's something I wanted you to bring up and talk a little bit more about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so the first thing is that we'll talk about the idea of a large language model gets trained, and they usually talk about pre-training. And then when you hear about post-training, that's usually alignment. It might be AI safety or the way they want that to work. So for example, ChatGPT, post-training there, turned it into a really good chatbot. The model actually existed 9 months earlier, and I was using it. It just wasn't really good at that part of it. So you've got the pre-training, you've got the post-training, and you've got the fine-tuning. And then what you have is you have all these other things that you're doing. The fine-tuning is if you wanted to understand your terminology for your industry or something like that. So it's not just looking at the whole internet. It's it's a little clue that you should be focused on this, or something around a particular domain. But the next layer of this has been this whole idea, people will hear this term RAG, retrieval augmented generation. It's a new kind of database for information, and it just pulls the answers more effectively than they have in the past. So we've always had search engines. They bring up a document or 10 blue links, and then you as a user were an information archaeologist. Good luck.
Ooh.
Here's a document, here's a page, I hope, or 10 pages. I hope you can find what you're looking for.
I wish I knew that terminology when I was, going through trying to do all that. I'm an archaeologist right
I know,
here.
That's essentially it. But now we don't have search engines, we have
right.
answer engines.
I love that. Yeah.
And then there's all these other things that are going on right now in terms of learning. And one of the most interesting things about learning is people will talk about agents, agentic AI. I like to think about an arbitration agent, as opposed to going right to an LLM like OpenAI or Gemini or something like that. You actually talk to a model, which could be based on one of those or another type of solution or another type of LLM, and it actually understands your intent. It does some reasoning to figure out how it could actually plan a response. and then either goes direct to an LLM or goes to a database plus, then goes to an LLM or goes through an enterprise system and pulls data out of it, or could actually just execute an entire workflow by basically distributing the work and then orchestrating it and then returning it. And this is not something we could do at all. If we did something like that in the old NLP, NLU days, the complexity of that was so significant because we had to basically say, if this, then that, if this, then that, if this, then that. Now what we can do is we can basically do what they call declarative and say, here's my objective. And so the reasoning agent then understands the objective and then it distributes the work to these other AI models. And so people think of AI as just like a model. There are some people who are still doing that, but the most interesting things right now are not that. The most interesting things that are going on is you're actually talking to multiple models that are fulfilling your request.
Wow. And then we're here at the AI House, CES, talking about the future, but what is the future going to be in a year from now or even 5 years from now, especially at CES? What are we going to be talking about?
Well, people will still be talking about agents next year because this year is going to be a little slow because it's on agent adoption, partially because it's complex and there's not a lot of people out there that actually have experience in that. I mean, we're fortunate because I've been in the industry a long time. TELUS has like a very large user base. We've done a lot of these things, but there are a lot of barriers for people just to like understand what they should do, to like define how they're going to utilize these types of things. So next year we will also be talking a lot more about what they call test time compute. Okay. And so if people are familiar with the ChatGPT 01 or 03 reasoning models, what we've had in the past is you do talking about pre-training, post-training, but now we have what they call inference time training, and that's essentially when you ask it a question, it's given the permission to think.
Okay, right.
And so instead of giving you an answer in 6 seconds, 12 seconds, whatever it might be, it actually gives you the answer later, and like you can define how long you allow it to think. And what we found is for more complex tasks, more complex questions, that if you give the models time to think, just like a human, like I might need to think about it.
It's going to be a better answer, right?
Much better,
yes.
Much better.
Yes, I'm excited for the future. I'm excited to continue talking to you about the future. I know that we're going to be talking again in a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, because it's such a great conversation. Bret, thank you so much.
Thank you.